What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. Well, a certain individual's name came by me 3 times this week, and I really had to take a look and see what the fuck was going on, to be totally honest with you. And I haven't done any drama videos or any bashing videos, fighting videos, any of that shit in quite a while. So it's not my thing anymore at all. This one is again not meant to bash or go after anybody, shots fired, shit like that, but I think it needs to be addressed because I found out that it was true. So let's back up for a second. So on the Gainscast podcast I did last week with Mark Lobliner and Matt Madrano, I was asked what I thought about this guy, Gregg Douchette. Now, I really hadn't paid attention. I actually didn't know that. I thought there was 2 different guys. I thought there was 2 guys that had similar names. It's actually the same guy. So what I didn't realize was there was a guy that was like back in the day, which was Gregg, before he really started pushing the channel, that he would do like these exercise videos. And I was like, well, I mean, it's kind of cool. He's doing his thing. Like it didn't bother me, and it wasn't something I wanted to watch, like to learn new stuff or whatever. It was just like, okay, cool. He started a channel. It's pretty informative. Cool. Now, I didn't watch the channel for, however long, and all of a sudden I had heard about Gregg Douchette this, and there's some controversy. So I'm like, is that the guy that... So I click on the channel, and now it's this guy who's kind of really whiny and stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, that's a different guy. He looks different. He's semi FBB Pro now. Different guy. So I watched like, maybe 3 or 4 minutes of one of his videos, and he was like, yeah, oh, and he was doing these weird fucking things, and I was like, if this is an act, I don't get it. If it's not an act, okay, he's just special. Okay, I get that. That would be another, okay, something completely different. But I'm like, maybe he's just special. That's what I thought. Like, he's just, that's how he is. He's wired like that, whatever the case may be. Now, so Lobliner had asked me about him, and I said, like, not him specifically, but there were people that took the format that many of us use. Like, Mark had his thing where he filmed from the side, and I filmed from the front. And we were really the 2 that started, like, yelling in the camera and doing the shit that the format became later on YouTube. So if you go back and look, he was going boom, and he had like this side thing where he was like at the, like it was his camera set up on the side, and mine was straight in front of me in my office in my house. And I was like, people started kind of they were mimicking what we were doing, trying to have the success that we were having, etc. So it didn't really work that way. But I wasn't talking about Gregg per se, right? Although he does have a similar format where he just sits in one room and then talks to the camera, which is pretty much what I've done this whole time. Now, other people do it. If you track back, though, you'll see that in the fitness industry that I was one of the first channels doing that, right? So we were just talking about how different channels have come up, and they don't mirror ours, but they were kind of similar. So that was the first time I heard of Gregg in a while. Haven't been really paying attention, right? And then all of a sudden, 2 days later, maybe 3 days later, this thing pops up with Chris Jones and Gregg Douchette. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It's the second time I heard this guy within a week. I'm like, okay, let me see what the fuck is going on. So I watched Chris's video where he tears this fucking guy up. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, first of all, I was like, wow, it's not an act. He's really like that. And then Chris pointed out how he used to be different. I'm like, holy shit, that really is the same guy. I'm like, oh, fuck. That's when it really clicked that this was the same dude I watched a long time ago that I thought was kind of informative and okay. And now this whiny guy, fucking, that dude was like a whole different ballgame. But you can't hold that against somebody, because if you look at me now and how I talk compared to where I first started out, I'm different too. You know what I mean? So we do change and evolve. And I think that this is just what Gregg has evolved into, which, fine, whatever. He's into that, that type of way that he gets his point across, his presentation. Get it. Okay, that's his thing. And then Leo, was it Leo and, Leo Longevity had a thing, and I'm looking at it right now, and it says Gregg Douchette, ratty or not, versus Cali Muscle. And I'm like, okay, this is the 3rd time in a fucking week that I've heard about this guy, so I started to do some research, because I was like, is this true? The one thing I actually want to talk about tonight, which is, did he compete in natural organizations on drugs? That was shocking for me to hear, that something like that would actually be a thing and people would be following him. Like, it would be common knowledge, and they'd be like, yeah, it's okay, I'll keep... Whoa, pump the brakes. What the fuck? Now let's back up. For those of you that think it's okay to compete enhanced in natural leagues, now, if you think like that, you're already a douchebag. So really, what I say right now is not going to get through to full-blown douchebags. But some of you guys are only partial douchebags at this point. So therefore, when I say what I'm about to say, when you hear that, you might actually think twice about doing something fucking stupid, like being on gear and going to do a natural show. So we're going to go back to 1993. And it was my first time on stage, the Colonial Classic. It was March of 1993, the Colonial Classic. I was a senior in high school. It was the ANBC, American Natural Bodybuilding Conference, the ANBC. So I go to get on stage as a teenage lightweight weighing 140 pounds, 135, 140 pounds, and this guy standing next to me is 19 years old. He's about 235. And we don't go by weights, we go by heights in that division. You know, it was the teenage division. Actually, the ANBC in general was just heights. They had short, medium, and tall. But they did have a scale there for whatever reason, and they were weighing people in, and people just checking their weights, whatever. And I couldn't comprehend how this 19-year-old looked like that. And I looked like me, and I had 3 years to go, or 2 years to go to be 19, and how I was going to make that jump. How I was going to put on 90 pounds of muscle. Like, in my head, I was like, wow, I have a lot of training to do. Because I didn't know, I was naive. So, of course, this guy smashed everybody. He even had a receding hairline already at 19 years old. Like, he was almost bald already. So we go on to the next show. Now, mind you, I'm starting to hear about steroids now. Steroids, gear, etc., etc. Now, I'd heard about it a little bit when I was in the gym before, but now, you know, you're a competitor. So now what happens is you're starting to hear, even in the natural league, so-and-so's on, so-and-so's on. They're taking this, they're taking that, whatever the case may be. So we go to this other show, and we're all lining up to take our polygraph test, because that's what you do at a natural federation. So now they do urinalysis, sometimes urinalysis and polygraph. Back then, ANBC was just polygraph. So you're waiting to take your polygraph test. And I had taken one before, you know, for the previous competition. And this one guy was holding up the process. Now, the whole test takes about 15 minutes. This guy had been there for almost an hour. And we were like, what the fuck is going on? And we're all lined up, like, waiting around, because you have appointments, right? They schedule them every 15 minutes. Meanwhile, like, now they're all backed up in this show. Everybody wants to get home, do their carb up, all their crazy shit, right? So the guy finally comes out, and they shake hands, and he laughs, and he kind of walks away, and, you know, his father or whoever the fuck that was, trainer or coach or whatever was with him, they kind of walk away together. And we're like, what the fuck was going on? Now, it wasn't until the next day that some of the people running the show had told us that the kid had failed the drug test like 5 times. He failed the polygraph test. But by law, they had to let him take it until he made sure that he passed it. I'm like, what the fuck? So technically they could get sued if they didn't let him take it again. And they had no choice. They took it 5 times. Finally passed, and you're in. And all of us watched that guy win the entire show. And he was so fucking big. He wasn't in shape. The other guys were in shape. He was so fucking big compared to them. And we knew that they were giving him the win when he didn't deserve it. Because as soon as you come out and you think that there's someone as a judge, that they're enhanced, and they got away with it, and you're looking at them, you automatically can make that call on the spot whether to place them dead last. It's happened before. I've seen it plenty of times. People that were on placed dead last. They had to place this guy above the other people. Give him first place. There was no overall at the time. They didn't do that in that league. And then he went on to like the Natural USAs or something. So he got a spot at the Natural USAs. Enhanced. And man, we had that year, like the rest of the year, everybody was like, well, what's the point of even doing this? Like, why do we even bother if somebody can just come in here and do that? And it really fucking rattled everybody, right? Because we knew, looking at these guys, there was no way that any natural person was going to beat these guys. They had an edge that we didn't have. And everybody walked into those shows with their heads down, knowing that they, no matter what they did, were never going to be first place because they knew those guys were taking drugs. Now, you didn't see it women in the women's division. We only had women's bodybuilding back then. So if women took hormones, I mean, they changed so fast and so little that they would take and change that they would you'd immediately be able to tell who was on and who wasn't back then. But there were still good women bodybuilders too, you know. But it was this whole kind of era of the natural community, which we had a huge natural community up there too, in Somerset, Massachusetts. Somerset, Warren, Swansea, that whole area up there. And the whole community was abuzz. And it actually led to the formation of a new federation, which was called the NABF, the North American Bodybuilding Federation, which was founded by Al Thurston. And I was actually lucky enough to be the teenager participant when they created the league, to kind of give my input as to what I thought would be good for the teenagers that's being left out at this other league or federation. And that federation was born through that stuff that we saw, that people were getting away with competing on drugs in natural organizations. And So that should tell you a little bit right there about people are so frustrated they walked away from the Federation. The Federation didn't fold, but they lost a lot of their competitors to the new NABF. So think about it for a second. If enough people were willing to walk away because they really felt like they couldn't compete there, even though that was the bigger league, it held the more prestige. So if you want to show in the ANBC or the NABF, the ANBC is the one that you had all the prestige with. You had all the clout, you had the bragging rights, you had everything with that one. They were willing to walk away just to be able to compete on even ground. And they didn't give a fuck about the prestige. They didn't give a fuck about, back then, contracts and magazines. They didn't give a fuck. They just wanted to compete, do their best, to see who was the best on stage that day, naturally. So I've been involved with this, getting cheated thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I've never been in a natural federation and said, well, it's between me and another guy. But I've had those guys in my class. And I've stood next to them, and they peel down, and you just look at them, and they look like somebody that should be on the friggin' Olympia stage. And you're like, what? And you realize, you're like, what am I doing? Why? Like, you're actually questioning why you're even doing it anymore. If that can happen, why not just back out and let all those guys come in and there is no more tested leagues? But then you take away some of that innocence, like that purity that bodybuilding really is for some people. For some people, it's not about pushing their body to the limit. For some people, it's about a spiritual thing, a spiritual and physical thing together. It's about seeing how they can look or maintain or not, they can, use it for anti-aging. Like, there's so many reasons why people do bodybuilding. It's not always just to be competitive. And that can really be extinguished when you get to the point where it's all about winning medals, money, and by any means necessary with drugs. It taints that purity of it to a certain point. Or at least this is coming from somebody who was competing as a teenager. And that's how I viewed it at the time. And, I do view it that way now. I don't believe that if you're stepping into an enhanced organization, all you've done is pretty much taken all the guys that were awesome in the non-enhanced, moved them to the enhanced, and everybody else came up and got enhanced with it. It's even ground. It's perfect footing. Perfect. Beautiful. I believe that purity is there. I believe that people do everything, in the enhanced leagues for the same reason they do them in the lower leagues. But when you go to that lower league and you start seeing the people that are enhanced trying to, because they can't make it over here, well, that means that you're just going to cheat over here, and it takes the purity out of that whole thing. So basically the only ones that are really getting harmed from it are the natural bodybuilders. And I think in general, I think that, after looking into this Gregg Douchette thing, I saw that they did take all of his titles away and stuff. It was for drug, he got popped for fucking whatever that he took and stuff. And I can't believe that this guy, and you know what, people change. Like, for me to say some shit about him, I'm a former heroin addict. I've done a lot of shit I'm not proud of. I've done a lot of shady shit. I've done a lot of bad shit. Fuck, I've even done a lot of evil shit. Okay? But if I'm not that same guy, then hey, Gregg did that in his past. I think what I would like to see now, and Gregg, you can tell me to go fuck myself, I completely understand, is probably addressing the whole thing. If this is what happened, be like, look, here's what happened. I was at a point in my life, like, break it down. Let people know your, frame of mind, that was going on. Why would you do that? And why is it not okay now? Why do you feel like now it's not okay to compete in a natural organization, but you did then? Take people through the thought process. Get them to know you better. Let them know how you've evolved, right? And maybe in that process, you get other people that may be thinking about doing that same thing to step back and think twice about it, and maybe they don't do it, right? So now maybe you could help with a solution to a problem that, you kind of took advantage of earlier. Address it. Don't run away from it. Don't bullshit your way out of it. Don't do your little stupid things like this. Like, listen, just fucking man up. I've seen what you talk like when you don't talk like that, right? So sometimes you don't need to be swearing or jumping up and down or freaking out like you're having a friggin' coronary. You can just talk to people. Talk to people and let them know. This really happened. I did do this. It's not allegations. It did happen. This was what I was thinking at the time. Go through the whole thing. I guarantee you'd walk out of there with more respect, more fans. I bet you even some of your fucking people right now that are fucking your biggest trolls that are fucking with you, I bet you even they would have more respect for you if you pull off something like that. As opposed to running away or blaming it on someone else or whatever the case may be. Take responsibility, explain why, and explain why it's not okay today. And then from there, you let people make their own decisions. But as of right now, if something like that doesn't happen, I just think it's a douchebag move to go out there and have this stuff out there and not fully address it, especially since it's being brought up a lot now. And you have a following. What if most of that following didn't know that about you? Like, I was very upfront with my heroin use and the entire addiction process. As soon as I started, I was talking about that stuff. So it was ingrained in me so people knew what they were getting into. I'm sure people are seeing this now and being like, Gregg did what? I thought he was cool, man. What the fuck? Why would he do that? You know what I mean? So now it's more about, look, clear the air. You owe it to your fans that didn't know about it because, you know, it was buried or whatever. I didn't know. Why the fuck would I know? I wouldn't look for it, you know, until Chris mentioned it, and then Leo and Nick Trigili confirmed it. I didn't know what the fuck was going on, if it was true or not. But I just Googled it and I found it. So it's there. It's been brought up. It's been brought up by several people, including me now. And I think basically what I think all of us want to know is you're just not that guy anymore. Like, we're following you now and you're entertaining, you do your whole fucking shtick, but are you still that douchebag that did that back in the day? Because I don't think anybody really wants to be around or, you know, helping or even promoting someone who did something like that. But I think people would actually want to bring someone like that down. You see what I'm saying? Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So, bottom line is the ball is in Gregg's court. I think it was a shitty thing. I think that people grow, and I think that he could be a totally different guy now, but we need to hear from Gregg himself to find out. So again, I'm not picking sides. I'm not saying he's a douchebag. I'm not saying he's the awesomest guy in the fucking world. What I'm saying is I'm down the middle again. I see both arguments. I see both sides. So we've heard the people attacking him. Gregg, ball's in your court. See what you got. BioS3Training@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. BioS3Training.com is the blog. I haven't said this in so long. And that's Let's See What You Got, Gregg Bicep. And we are out.